ॐ दक्षिणस्य समारम्भा शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमा अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ता स्मर्या गुरुपरम्परा श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। परिज्ञानाश्रम श्रीगुरुशङ्कर परिज्ञानाश्रम शङ्कर सद्गुरु केशववामन कृष्ण पाण्डुरङ्ग आनन्द परिज्ञान गुरु सद्यो जात शङ्कर सद्गुरु गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः. So the entire Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna has stressed on two main topics, that is Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. And this Bhagwan Krishna made very clear in the very beginning itself. In the third verse of the third chapter itself, Bhagwan said that, see, there is no choice for a mumukshu regarding the goal. The choice is only with respect to the lifestyle. The choice of every mumukshu is ultimately moksha. Whether he takes up to a lifestyle of karma yoga or jnana yoga, the ultimate goal of every mumukshu is moksha. Then, what are these two lifestyles? Lokesmin dvividha nishta maya prokta, Bhagwan said. So, what is the meaning of this? Bhagwan says that ultimately, for every mumukshu, the goal is moksha. But then, every mumukshu may not be prepared at that particular moment of time to attain that goal straight away, and therefore, the choice is between two lifestyles. And Bhagwan said that those who are not prepared for this jnanam or for this receiving this knowledge of Atmajnana, for such people, a life of pravritti or a life of action orientedness is very necessary. But how that action is done by a specific lifestyle called as Karma Yoga. So, Karma Yoga is one nishtha or one lifestyle, and Jnana Yoga, those who are already prepared with sufficient Chitta Shuddhi and Chitta Naishalyam. For such people who are now ready to receive this Atmajnanam, for them, they can directly go to this Jnana Marga or Jnana Yoga. Therefore, as far as the goal moksha is concerned, these are two steps. Those who are prepared intellects, for them Jnana Yoga is the way of life, where there is a nivritti or withdrawal from active lifestyle and absolute pursuit of only Atmajnanam, scriptural study, Guru Mukhena Shastra Shravanam, for the sake of moksha. But for those people who are not prepared for this, one step extra has been prescribed by Bhagwan as a lifestyle or a nishtha of Karma Yoga. Therefore, entire Bhagavad Gita, if you see, the two main topics that are discussed are nothing but Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. Of course, there are so many other small topics like dharma and so many other things are being discussed. But the main stress of Bhagwan is on these two, that is the Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. And now that we are in the 18th chapter, and the 18th chapter being ultimately the closure or the parisamapti or upasamhara of this entire Bhagavad Gita, again there is no new teaching done here. What Bhagwan is trying to do here in 18th chapter is again and again he's summarizing the Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga again in two or three different ways. From different angles, Bhagwan is trying to summarize Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. And what did he do in the first 17 verses of the 18th chapter? He summarized the Karma Yoga and said that ultimately what is required is not karma tyaga but karma phala tyaga, and there is no difference between a sannyasi and a tyagi. And the sannyasi also, or the lifestyle of a sannyasa also, there can be three types of sannyasa depending upon the three gunas that was discussed in the first 17 verses. Then Bhagwan, up till the 40th verse, that means we are still in the 33rd, we are going to the 34th verse today, but till half of the chapter, that is about 40 verses, Bhagwan discusses many other topics which are closely associated with Karma Yoga. Now, what are the things which he talks about in these, about 28 to 30 verses? What kind of things does Bhagwan talk about? Bhagwan says that our entire daily living, nobody can live without doing any karma. Every one of us have to do some karma or the other. And therefore, there are mainly two kinds of vyaparas that are done, two types of vyavaharas that are done in the daily living of everybody. One is the jnana vyavahara, the other one is the karma vyavahara. And for this jnana vyavahara, which is in the form of knowing what to do, knowing certain things, so that an action can be done. Knowing, doing. Jnana Vyavahara, Karma Vyavahara. These are the two very important aspects of our daily living. Two important, that's the only thing. We are either knowing or we are doing. There is nothing other than that. And for this Jnana Vyavahara and Karma Vyavahara, Bhagwan decided to talk about six aspects of this kind of a jnana and karma vyavahara. And Bhagwan decides to talk on all these six topics from the point of view of the Sankhya philosophy, taking the three gunas for each of the topics discussed. So first he talked about jnanam itself. What is the knowledge? What is the type of knowledge that a person should have which is conducive enough for him to go towards his ultimate goal, moksha? And then he described his jnanam or knowledge in the form of sattvika jnanam, rajasa jnanam, and tamasa jnanam. Then he talked about the karma also. So when we take the jnana vyavahara and karma vyavahara, there are three very important things. That is the knowledge about what is to be done, which is jnanam, which was talked about from three different aspects, which we discussed in the last one or two classes. And then there is this karma, the action that is done based on the knowledge that is gained by the person, karma vyavahara. And according to Bhagwan, even karma was classified into three types, that is the sattvika karma, rajasa karma, and tamasa karma. And then Bhagwan said, for this karma to be done, there is a knower who knows what is to be done, there is a karma to be done, and when the karma is to be done, there is a doer, there is a karta. So the karta also should be of three types. If the knowledge is of three types, sattvika, rajasa, tamasa, jnanam, if the karma, the type of action done is of three types, sattvika, rajasa, tamasa karma, then the doer of this karma, the knower of this knowledge, and the doer of the karma also has to be of three types. And who's that karta? The karta himself can be either a sattvika karta, rajasa karta, or tamasa karta. And then, if this karta has to do something, what are the things that are mainly involved as a karta, as a doer? That is, his intellect has to guide him. As I said in the last class, we discussed up till the 33rd verse last class. And in what did Bhagwan say about the what is it that guides a person in his actions? What is it that guides a karta in a particular action? And in the last session, I even talked about the buddhi being compared to a sarathi, and the buddhi is the one which directs this person depending on the knowledge that has been gained and a particular decision having been made as to what kind of an action and how that action has to be taken about or followed. It is the buddhi which directs this karta into a particular action. Therefore, as an important backing, this karta needs what? Buddhi, that is the intellect, or the deciding factor, adhyavasayatmika or nishchayatmika buddhi, which decides as to what action should be done, what kind of an action should be done, how it should be done, etc. The buddhi decides. And Bhagwan said that this buddhi is also of three types: satvika buddhi, rajasi buddhi, satviki buddhi, rajasi buddhi, and tamasi buddhi. Three types of buddhis also were described in the last session. Then Bhagwan says, when you have the buddhi which decides what is to be done, there should be something called as a staying power or a commitment or willpower, which Bhagwan called as dhruti. And in the last session itself, I explained that buddhi and dhruti cannot be very clearly distinguished or differentiated. Buddhi is the capacity to decide upon what is to be done, and dhruti is the capacity to stay with that decision. It is the capacity to remain committed to that decision. It is the capacity to have that willpower to continue to do what the buddhi has decided to do. Therefore, buddhi and dhruti are like the two sides of a coin. And therefore, if there is a satviki buddhi, then there should be a dhriti or commitment or willpower. Let's call dhriti as willpower for simplicity. The willpower to continue with the action as decided by the buddhi also is of three types. And I explained also in the last session that if the buddhi is a satviki buddhi, then the dhriti also has to be satviki, because the willpower, the commitment, the staying power also has to go along with the characteristic of the buddhi. And if the buddhi is satviki buddhi, then the dhriti also has to be a satviki dhriti. So dhriti also was divided or talked about in three ways. And in the 33rd verse in the last class, what did we see? Bhagwan described this dhriti, which in other words, for simplicity, we'll take it as willpower. He described the sattvika dhriti as what? 33rd verse we'll repeat again today, because that will complete the three dhritis. I took the 33rd verse in the last session, just introduced it. He said, Dhritya yaya dharayate manah pranendriya kriyaha yogena vyabhicharinya dhriti sa partha satviki. So the satviki dhriti is what? Avyabhicharinya dhritya. That willpower or that commitment which does not waver, and it takes along with it the manaha, prana, and all the indriyas along with it, and continues on the path of the goal decided. And now, at present, what is our goal? What is the path we have taken? We have taken this path of Jnana Marga. We have taken this path to reach moksha as our goal. So, here, Satviki Dhriti is that where this Dhriti or commitment or willpower backs the Satviki Buddhi to continue, to persist on this path of the spiritual growth and also to reach that ultimate goal, moksha. So, this was about the Satviki Dhriti, which we started the last session. So, from now, we'll go to the next verse, that is the 34th verse, where Bhagwan talks about the Rajasi Dhriti, and the 35th verse, where Bhagwan talks about the Tamasi Dhriti. Let's see what is this Rajasi Dhriti. So if we remember the Satviki, Rajasi, and Tamasi Buddhi, the Satviki, Rajasi, and Tamasi Dhritis also go quite along with it. So let's see what is this Rajasi Dhriti or willpower. So 34th verse of the 18th chapter. Yaya tu dharma kamarthan dhritya dharayaterjuna prasangena phalakankshi dhritis sa partha rajasi. So what is this Rajasi Dhriti? Yaya Dhritya, that dhriti by which the person is mostly dabbling in dharma, artha, kama, purusharthas. For a rajasic dhriti, like the rajasic buddhi, there is only interest in material achievement. There is something only in the only importance that such a person gives is to the material, accumulation or accomplishment of things. And so he says here, dharma, kama, arthan dhritya. Therefore, here for a rajasi dhriti, at present, this dhriti or this buddhi is not interested in moksha. It is only interested in the other three purusharthas, that is prayas, which is in the language of the Kathopanishad, it is called as the prayo marga, dharma, accumulation of merits, accumulation of punya to go to higher lokas after death or to enjoy better situations in the life now as it is now. So accumulation of punya, dharma, artha, accumulation or accomplishment of material gains, kama, enjoyment of whatever I want to enjoy, the arthas of the world outside. So dharma, artha, kama, moksha, purusharthas, in which the dharma, artha and kama are the importance given by a rajasi dhriti. So at present there is no involvement in moksha as such, and such a person is flogged by or he's propelled by this buddhi and dhriti, which are nothing but interested purely in dharma, artha, and kama purusharthas. And what kind of a dhriti is it? Prasangena phalakankshi, very, very strongly attached to the phalam of dharma, artha, kama, that this is the phala that I have to get. I have to do this particular action to accumulate this kind of a punya or to accumulate or accrue this kind of material benefit. So, purely a materialistic desire to enjoy the materialistic gains of life. This is the focus of Rajasi Dhruti. And he says, Phalakankshi. All the time there is only the interest in what phala I am going to get. And such a buddhi is capable of going to any extent, which we saw when we talked about the Rajasi Buddhi. Sometimes dharma need no more. It is not that a person wants to do adharmic actions, but if there is something coming in the way of his achieving the results that he or she wants in the dharma, artha, kama, purusharthas, the person is willing to even go to adharma. And even if it causes himsa to the others, discomfort to the others, inconvenience to the others, the person is not really sensitive to the inconveniences or problems caused to the others. And such a person is mostly interested only in getting the required result for himself, and he does not bother to see what kind of a price he has to pay for it. So he's purely limited. His dhriti is limited to what I can get. Do I get whatever I want? How much I can get, how much more I can get, how much maximum I can get out of my action. That is what this person with Rajasi Dhriti is saying. Such a Dhriti is called as a Rajasi Dhriti. See, there is nothing wrong in this. See, our scriptures do not find any fault with Rajasi Dhriti or Rajasi Buddhi or Tamasi Buddhi, Tamasi Dhriti. No, even a Rajasi Dhriti is required. See, just imagine if every one of us, if all the jivas are only having this Sattvika Buddhi, Sattvika Dhriti, and the only goal is moksha, then who is there to take care of, running this entire universe? There are people who are necessary to be committed to work. And there are people who are necessary, it is necessary to earn, it is necessary to create wealth in the society, it is necessary to have success to keep the things going. So, Rajasi Dhriti is not as such a bad thing. Our Vedas never talk or never say that it is wrong. They only say that ultimately one has to go beyond Rajasi Dhriti also. It is okay temporarily. As a contributor, a person who has a Rajasi Buddhi, a Rajasi Dhriti, and a Rajasic Karta is a contributor. Such people are very necessary to function in this world. It's very, very necessary. But at the same time, all these people, all of us, if we are Rajasic Kartas, If we have a rajasi buddhi, or if we have a rajasi dhriti, ultimately we have to understand that there is a limit for the amount of phalas that I can get out of dharma, artha, kama, purusharthas. Some amount of vairagya should come sometime, and I have to actually go beyond the rajasi dhriti, rajasi buddhi, and go to sattviki dhriti and buddhi. Ultimately, I have to graduate from dharma, artha, kama, purusharthas to moksha purushartha ultimately. And that is the ultimate goal. That is the ultimate spiritual growth of a mumukshu. A mumukshu cannot be stuck with the rajasi dhriti and rajasi buddhi, because after accumulating enough of punya, there is nothing else he is going to achieve. Therefore, one has to learn to go beyond and graduate or go beyond the rajasi dhriti and fix my goal onto that ultimate goal, which is nothing but moksha purushartha. So this kind of a dhriti is rajasi dhriti. Then in the 35th verse, Bhagwan goes to the tamasi dhriti. What does he say about what is this tamasi dhriti? यया स्वप्नं भयं शोकं विषादं मदमेव च न विमुञ्चति दुर्मेधा धृतिः सा तामसी मता. That kind of a willpower or that commitment which does not give up arrogance, madaha, madamevacha, that which does not give up that arrogance and mada and ahankara, at the same time, it has the indulgence in the objects of the world for itself, and everything is only for the material pursuits. And this dhriti, which is propelled by swapnam. What is the meaning of swapnam? Daydreaming. A person may not be actually doing anything. It is a rajasic dhriti which actually does something. A tamasa dhriti only daydreams and may not even do what has to be. A rajasic dhriti that way is far better. At least it is doing something in terms of contribution to the world. Whereas a tamasi dhriti wants all the material comforts. At the same time, this tamasi dhriti is not willing to work for it. It is propelled by what? It is propelled by swapnam, daydreaming, fantasizing. It is propelled by this kind of a vritti, where the person is not active but constantly daydreaming about achieving things, doing things but not really doing. Bhayam, propelled by fear. Fear of what? He is afraid to act because of the fear of failure. Most of the tamasi dhriti people, they are afraid even to start an action because they're afraid that they may not be able to continue, because we have already seen what kind of a karta is a tamasi karta, isn't it? He's a dirgha sutri, he's an alasi. Okay, and he's a person who is absolutely inert. The inertia is so much that he has to be literally shaken to do anything. Such a person, he's propelled by the fear that he may not be able to complete the task, the fear of failure. He's driven by that. Therefore he doesn't start doing anything at all. He feels that it's better not to start doing anything rather than start and then fail in doing that. But at the same time, he wants all the material benefits for himself, and he is driven by daydreaming or fantasy. Shokam, all the time complaining and unhappy. Shokam, oh, I'm not getting this, I'm not getting that, I'm not respected, I have not got this. Shokam, all the time in that sorrow, wallowing in his self pity. Vishadam, complaining all the time that this did not happen, I did not do this because of this particular reason, I'm like this because of this particular reason, my parents did not bring me up properly, that is why I'm like this. All this kind of moha, vishada, by which the person blames everybody else, finds faults with everything else, but chooses to remain without doing anything. And he is arrogant at the same time, not willing to listen to anybody. Even though he's told, he's not willing to understand and listen to anybody. Madamevacha, na vimunchati durmedha. Such a person is a person with a durmedha. that is a person with a durbuddhi, kubuddhihi, such a person, the one who has this kind of a dhriti, which is propelled by mere daydreaming and not doing anything, always finding fault with others, not willing to start anything, at the same time expecting that everything should be done by others for him and everything should go on well for such a person. This kind of a person is a person who has a tamasi dhriti. Now, the three types of dhritis have already been talked about by Bhagwan. Now, if a person has learned something, jnana vyavahara has happened, karma vyavahara has happened. See, we have to learn to connect the verses. It's very important. From the 18th verse up till the 40th verse, we have to see the connection. It's not various topics which are randomly taken and discussed. No. Maybe briefly Lord Krishna has discussed, but these six topics which Bhagwan is going to discuss, which he has discussed between the 18th verse and the 40th verse, are all connected topics. They're all connected to what? A person who knows something, has the icha of doing something, and then he is doing something. So there are three aspects to it: knowing, desiring to do something, and doing. And in these three, Bhagwan talked about three different ways in which a person can do these three things. How three different sattvika, rajasa, tamasa way of knowing, the way of desiring, and the way of doing things were discussed. And in the last two, that is buddhi and dhiti, what the karta is backed by. This karta or the doer is backed by what? The willpower and also the deciding factor, that is the buddhi. Now, if I have done a particular job after having learned something by a particular jnanam, and by a particular ichha, and I have done this particular action with a certain type of buddhi and certain type of dhriti, what is my ultimate purpose of doing any kriya or any action? It is ultimately to get sukham as the phalam of this, isn't it? Ultimately, all of us are looking for the results of our actions, whatever we do, in the form of attaining some happiness for ourselves. And here in the next three verses, Bhagwan talks about what are the three kinds of happiness that a person is looking for. So every karta in every action is looking for phalam for what purpose? For the purpose of happiness. So what is this sukham that a person is expecting? What kind of sukhas are there? How many types of sukhas are there? And is it possible to train the mind to be abiding in one particular kind of sukha? That is what he's going to discuss in the next three verses, starting from the 36th verse. And the three types of sukhas, again, in keeping with the previous verses, it is going to be Satvika Sukham, Rajasa Sukham, and Tamasa Sukham. So let us see in the 36th verse what Bhagwan wants to say about these three kinds of sukhas. So he says, Sukham Tvidanim Trividham Shrunu me Bharatarshabha अभ्यासाद्रमते यत्र dukhantam cha nigacchati. So in this verse, he gives an introduction to what sukha is. So he says, Sukham tu idanim trividham shrunu. Hey Arjuna, now I am going to talk to you about three types of sukha: a sattvika sukha, rajasa sukha, and tamasa sukha. And then, hey Arjuna, you must understand that, when we desire for sukha, when we desire for happiness, it is possible to train our minds to enjoy a particular sukha. You see, we can develop an attitude towards a particular type of sukha. For example, I may not like a certain thing, I may not have the happiness when I listen to some kind of a music. Possible, it is possible that some kinds of music don't give me happiness, they actually disturb me, it may be that. But slowly, over a period of time, I keep on listening to that same music again and again, my intolerance to that comes down, and one day I may even start enjoying that particular music. Similarly, anything else also which I do not really care for much now, but then over a period of time, I can develop a taste towards certain things which I start enjoying. This is how most of the addictions take place. Initially, a person who is given to addictions is not really interested and not much, drawn away by them. But over a period of time, as the addiction worsens, the person starts finding that happiness, and then he trains his mind to find happiness in that object of addiction. So, what Bhagwan says is, it is possible for us to choose the type of happiness, to choose the type of sukham we want to revel in. And with abhyasa, it is possible for us to remain in that kind of a sukha. So he says, Idanim Shrunu, now you listen, Arjuna. Three types of sukha I'm going to talk about. Why am I going to talk about three types of sukhas? Because whether it is sattvika sukha, rajasa sukha, or tamasa sukha, it is possible to train one's mind. Abhyasad ramate yatra. Abhyasa, constant practice. With constant practice, I can learn to abide. Abhyasad ramate yatra. So I can decide as to what kind of a sukha I want. Do I want that sukha which is a sattvika sukha, which I get out of my pursual of my Atmajnana and spiritual journey? Or do I want a Rajasa Sukha which I get only out of the sense pleasures? Do I want only that Sukha? Or Tamasa Sukha, Sukha by various other addictions and troubling other people? Do I want to get that kind of Sukha? What kind of a Sukha ultimately I want? What kind of a result of my action that I want? And ultimately in this life, if I'm knowing certain things, doing action, what is it that I'm doing for? It is ultimately for happiness. Ultimately, everybody wants to avoid dukkha and have sukha. And if that is so, is it possible for me to train my mind towards a particular type of sukha? And then, for that reason, it is very important, Bhagwan says, to know what kind of sukhas are there. If I know that there is a sattvika sukham, which is very conducive for me for my spiritual growth, and to ultimately attain my final goal of moksha, I can train my mind to enjoy or to revel in the Sattvika Sukha. If not, if it is a Rajasi, Dhriti, and Buddhi person, a person who gets happiness only out of material benefits or material sukha, such a person can train his mind to get happiness only out of material achievement and nothing else. Therefore, Krishna says, Arjuna, it is very necessary for you to know that there are three types of sukha also, and abhyasat, by constant practice and by awareness of what kind of sukha I want to be and what kind of a sukha is conducive for me. Am I a moksha purusharthi or am I a dharma artha kama purusharthi? If I'm a dharma artha kama purusharthi, it's okay. Let me revel in rajasa sukha or tamasa sukha. But if ultimately my goal is moksha purushartha, then how should I train my mind? What should I train my mind for? What kind of a sukha I should train my mind for? Therefore, Arjuna, it is necessary for you to know the three kinds of sukhas that are there. Abhyasad ramate yatra dukkhantam cha nigachati. Ultimately, that which takes you away from dukkha, that which makes you go beyond dukkha, that's sukha, where there is no question of dukkha again. What kind of a sukha is it? Is it that which you are right now reveling in, or is there something else that you can do to move upwards, to move forwards, and to try to get, to have the abhyasa or train your mind to abide in a particular kind of sukha, which is called as Satvika Sukha. So the three Satvika, Rajasa, and Tamasa Sukhas are being dealt here. In the 37th verse, he talks about the Satvika Sukha, and Bhagwan says, Yattadagre Vishamiva Pariname Mritopamam Tatsukham Satvikam Proktam Atma Buddhi Prasadajam. So, what is this Satvika Sukha? That sukha which is beyond all dukkha, niratishayam, that which goes beyond all kinds of samsara dukkhas, that which takes me away from this samsara, that which releases me from this samsara. What kind of a sukha is it? From where does it come? It comes from what? Atma Buddhi Prasadajam. Last word, Atma Buddhi Prasadajam. That Buddhi Aham Brahmasmi iti, that Brahman I am iti, that Buddhi, Atma Buddhi, knowing myself not to be the body mind sense complex, understanding myself to be that Sakshi Chaitanya Atma Aham iti, knowing myself to be what really my Swarupam is as that Atma Swarupa, that Atma Prasada Buddhi, by that Atma Prasada, by abiding in this Atma Swarupam, by that prasada of that knowledge, the result of this knowledge, that particular Sukham is called as the Satvikam Sukham. Tat Sukham Satvikam. That Sukham is the Satvikam Sukham Proktam, which I call Satvika Sukham Atma Buddhi Prasadajam, that which is born out of abiding in my own Swarupa, Atma Swarupa. Who am I? I am not the body, mind, sense complex. I am this Atma who is the Sakshi Chaitanya Atma, the Kshetrajna, the Aksharam Brahma, which is that light of consciousness, which is in every jiva. Iti, this understanding is the one which ultimately gives me that abhayam, and that gives me that ultimate sukham. When there is no scope for fear, there is that ultimate happiness, sattvika tat sukham. And initially, this kind of abidance in this sukham is difficult. So he says in the first line, yattadagre vishamiva. Vishamiva means it is very difficult initially, because to abide in this Atma Swarupam and have this Atma Buddhi Prasada as the Satvika Sukham, one has to be prepared. One has to prepare one's intellect and dilute the ragadveshas. Get rid of the doshas. Chitta Shuddhi has to happen. A lot of number of years of Karma Yoga has to be followed. Chitta Naischalyam has to come by following Upasana Yoga. And then I have to expose myself to Jnana Yoga. Guru Mukhena Shastra Shravanam. I have to do enough of Shravanam. Then I have to make my knowledge doubt free by Mananam. Then I have to contemplate sufficiently with Nididhyasanam. And only at the end of it, as the Nididhyasana Phala, as the Jnana Phala, this Atma Buddhi abiding in Atma Swarupa happens, and therefore ultimately this Atma Buddhi will give me that Satvika Sukham, that Sukham beyond which there is no other Sukham. But to reach there, to ultimately get that, I have to struggle in the initial stages. Therefore, I have to have the dhriti. That is why it was said in the 33rd verse that dhriti which takes me, keeps me on this path of moksha, which does not make me come away. Oh God, it is so difficult. 25 years I have studied Vedanta. Still I am a samsari. Still I am a dukhi. There is no use. Who has seen moksha is there or not? Who knows? Who has seen? Let me not bother about it. Let me at least get involved in, material life. At least let me enjoy my life here. If this is the kind of dhriti and I give up in the middle, then I'm not going to attain that Satvika Sukham. Ultimately, it is the Atma Jnana Sukham which is the Satvikam Sukham. But Yattad Agre, initially when I start, it is Vishamiva, like poison. It is very difficult. Whereas Pariname Amritopamam, at the end, it is like Amritam. It is Amritam, not like Amritam. It gives me that immortality. It gives me that Amritatvam. Initially, yes, it is difficult. But ultimately, when I abide in that Sukha Swarupatma, which is the Satvika Sukham, that Mana Prasada that I get, that Jivan Mukti, that kind of a freedom that I get from samsara, that is the ultimate Sukham, which is Pariname Amrita Upamam. It is Amritam at the end, but initially I have to struggle. See, it is always like that. If you look at things, there are people who are climbing Mount Everest. What are they climbing for? Because they know that ultimately, when they climb and when they go there and they hoist their flag, that kind of a sukha that they get ultimately is worth all the trouble that they have taken. Correct? So like anything you take, if it is a very difficult thing to achieve, even in the laukika field, take any kind of a player who has attained a world class fame in any kind of a sport. What kind of practice, what kind of an involvement he should. Yatad agre, initially it is so difficult, but at the end, the result is so, the Sattvika Sukham is so much that the person is willing to undergo any difficulty, even though it is very, very difficult in the middle and in the beginning. So, for a mumukshu, because I have Shraddha in Shastra, I have Shraddha in the Guru's words, that ultimately, when I go along what Lord Krishna is saying, Karma Yogena Chitta Shuddhi, Upasana Yogena Chitta Naishchalyam, Jnana Yogena Jnanam, Jnanattu Eva Kaivalyam, if I go on this particular path, there is no doubt that I will have this Sattvika Sukham. When the Shraddha is there, initially, even if the journey is difficult, even if in the middle the journey is difficult, the dhruti and the buddhi keep me going, and ultimately what I get is this sukham, which is nothing but atma buddhi prasadajam. Then next he goes to the 38th verse, where rajasa sukham, that sukham which is rajasam is described here. Again here, moksha is not the main purushartha here. Purushartha Nishchaya has not been done. Bahushakha Anantascha, Krishna said earlier in the third chapter only. He does not know ultimately what his goal is. He does not have moksha as his ultimate goal. He still wants to dabble in Vedapurva, wants to dabble in Bahushaka Ananta, different things to get different kind of sukha from different things. So what kind of this sukham is this Rajasa Sukham? That is what he's saying in the 38th verse, which says, Vishayendriya samyogad yattadagre mritopamam pariname vishamiva tatsukham rajasam smritam. What is this Rajasa Sukha? Initially, this Rajasa Sukha gives me that immediate sense of high. It gives me that thrill. It gives me that high that initially, my God, this is so enjoyable. This kind of, a material kind of a sukha, which I get out of samsparsha. What is samsparsha? Yehi samsparshaja bhogaha. The samsparsha, or the contact between the sense organs and the sense objects, that kind of a sukha that it gives. Initially, it is a wonderful sukha, and initially it looks as if it is amritopamam. He says that Vishaya Indriya Samyogad. Vishaya means the objects of the world, objects or situations or people of the world. When we say Vishayas, all the three are included. When there is a Samyoga, or when there is a contact between the Vishayas and the senses, whatever sukha is produced, that sukha initially looks as if it is a wonderful thing, and I want to repeat it again. I want to have it again. I don't want to lose it for any reason. So initially it is as though it is Amritam, but Pariname Vishamiva. But at the end of it, as we go on, we realize that all this, sensory sukhas that we got out of the objects of the world, they are not lasting at all. We have seen the doshas. What are the doshas? To get the sukha from the material world outside itself is dukkha. Itself is very difficult, number one. To maintain that particular sukha, it is again so much of dukkha. And then either the sukha goes, or the object goes away from me, or I go away from the object. So either the object or the vishaya that is very dear to me goes away from me, or I myself go away from the object. Worst thing is, after having enjoyed the Vishaya Sukha for long enough, I lose interest in it. What was very important to me some time ago, now no longer that gives me Sukha. I want more and more and more, material stimulation for the same kind of Sukha. That is why it is said that the Rajasic Sukha is the one which is temporary. Temporarily it satisfies me. Initially it looks as if it is the best thing that I have had. Amruta upamam agre. Exactly opposite to the Satvika Sukha we saw in the previous verse. Amrita upamam. But Pariname, at the end what? Vishamiva. That same Sukha, which, I felt was like, oh, it is, the Sukha which I would never give up for anything. Probably I'll be waiting when this will go away from me. I do not want this sukha anymore. It becomes a painful sukha. and I want to get rid dvesha, anything which is born out of raga continuously, it won't be there with me, and it generates a dvesha in me, and either I want to go away from it or it goes away from me. So pariname tat sukham vishamiva bhavati, that is what is called as the rajasam sukham smritam. Then what is tamasa sukham? He says यदग्रे चानुबन्धे च सुखं मोहनमात्मनः निद्रालस्य प्रमादोत्थं तत्तामसमुदाहृतम्. What is tamasa sukham? He says, in the beginning also it is dukkha, okay, at the end also it is dukkha, there is no sukha in it at all. Then why is this tamasa person going after it? He thinks out of moha, out of delusion. He says mohanatmanaha, out of delusion this person thinks that attaining this particular thing gives me sukha, attaining it also is dukkha, and after attaining whatever comes also is dukkha. There is no sukha to start with also. There is no sukha at the end also. Agre means in the beginning also. Anubandhecha means at the end also. That sukha is nothing but delusion. What he thinks as sukham is nothing but delusion. There is no sukha either agre in the beginning or at the end of it. And this sukha he tries to get from what? Nidra, alasya, pramada, uttam. This sukha, this kind of a tamasa sukha, a person tries to get out of what? Nidra. The source of sukha for this person is nidra. This person is willing to sleep for any amount of time, any time of the day, anywhere. There is no question of getting up in the morning early to welcome the sun, nothing like that. Any time of the day, anywhere, sleeping. So nidra, sukham from nidra. Alasya, laziness, not willing to get up and do anything, even taking care of his own self or being useful to the family also is not there. Oh, his sukha is born out of nidra and alasyam, and he's a dirgha sutri, as we saw, in the tamasa karta, the one who procrastinates, the one who gets his sukham out of procrastination. Pramada, neglect, a person who is willing to neglect anything till the last minute, this person will not do anything. When the time is up and he no longer can remain without doing, somebody else will do that job for him. So a person who finds happiness or who gets sukha, this is not really sukha actually, but he has a moha or a delusion that this is sukha, that because he does not do anything, does not want to do anything. Nidra, alasya, pramada. Sleep, laziness, procrastination, and pramada means neglect. Neglecting one's duties towards oneself, towards the family, towards the society, everything. A person who tries to get this sukha, who abides in this kind of a sukha, which is brought about by nidra, alasya, and pramada, such a person is having, such a person revels in tamasa sukham. Now, why these three types of sukhas are talked about? We can train our minds to really abide in any one of the types of sukha. If a tamasic person is reveling in this kind of a sukha, it's not that Vedas are blaming such a person. It is said that I should recognize this as a tamasa person. Are I'm finding my sukha in such a destructive way, in such destructive things. I must come up and be active. Being active and being rajasic takes this person away from tamasika sukham. And once, sometime or the other, even from the rajasika sukham, I have to learn to go beyond the rajasika sukham and try to abide in the tamasika sukham by undertaking my ultimate journey of moksha. So, with this, six topics that Bhagwan wanted to discuss from the point of view of the three gunas are complete, and he kinds of does the upasamhara in the 40th verse, and he says, Natadasti prithivyam va divi deveshu va punaha satvam prakriti jair muktam yadebhi syatri gunaihi. So here Bhagwan says that na tadasti prithivyam va divi deveshu va punaha. There is no being either in this earth or in the Devaloka or in any other loka, in all the 14 lokas, all the jivas are being affected by the combination of these three gunas. Sattvam means here the mind. Na tadasti, there is no single being, Prithivyam, on the earth, Vadivi, or in any other loka, Deveshuva, either among gods or higher beings or human beings, Sattvam Prakriti Jair Muktam. Sattvam means the character or the mind which is free from gunas, Prakriti gunas. There is nobody. These are Prakriti gunas. And who are we? The entire 14 lokas are inhabited by the jivas who are the products of Prakriti. And since the Sattva, Rajas, Tama gunas are the very characteristics of Prakriti, there is no way in which any jiva in any of the 14 lokas can escape the three gunas. But the only thing is, there are different permutations and combinations of these three gunas. The three important ones are predominantly sattvic guna, where the rajas and tamas are secondary to sattvic guna. Then there is a predominant rajasic guna, where the other two are subsidiary, and there is a predominantly tamasic guna, where the other two are subsidiary. But there may be three prominent kind of gunas, but among these three also there are various permutations and combinations, and every jiva in every loka in the 14 lokas is nothing but the various combinations, different shades of the combinations of sattva, rajas and tamas. So he says sattvam prakriti jair muktam na tadasti. The one, there is no jiva who is free from this prakriti given three gunas. Yadebhihi syat tribhihi gunaihi. Tribhir gunaihi, the three gunas do not spare anybody. All of us are the products of these three gunas, and all of us manifest the three gunas. What are we predominantly? That is what we have to see. And if we are predominantly tamasic, then it is our duty to recognize that, be aware of that, and with action, with karma, come up to the rajasic level. And when rajasic predominance, rajas predominance is there, from there I can jump to sattva predominance or sattvic predominance. From tamas directly going to sattva is not possible. I have to go step by step. I have to, improve, or I have to graduate from tamas to rajas and then to sattva. This is the way one can really go up the spiritual path, and a mumukshu can really attain his ultimate goal. With this, the three gunas with which it was, which three, 6 points which Bhagwan wanted to discuss are completed. Now we'll go to the 41st verse, where Bhagwan again wants to come to Karma Yoga. He wants to talk about karma again, because here in the 18th chapter, Bhagwan Krishna keeps on, talking once on Karma Yoga, way of life, and once on Jnana Yoga, way of life. So again and again and again, from different aspects, from different points of view, Bhagwan talks about karma and jnana, karma and jnana. And from the 41st verse, again Bhagwan wants to talk about different kinds of karma. And here Bhagwan wants to talk about the karmas depending upon, the varnas. What is a Brahma karma, or what is Brahmana karma? What is a Kshatriya karma? What is a Vaishya karma? What is a Shudra karma? See, this is not what I am saying. Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra are the Varna system which was explained in detail by Bhagwan in the 4th chapter. And these Varnas came about because of the predominance of a certain guna. And Bhagwan says that a person who is Sattva Guna Pradhana, followed by Rajas and Tamas, is called as a Brahmana, because he has that particular, mindset, or the set of, the kind of pravritti which can do certain karmas, what are called as Brahma karmas. Whereas a Kshatriya has Rajas predominant, Sattva following that, and Tamas following that, which has a certain kind of a pravritti which is called as Kshatriya Dharma. A Vaishya has got Rajas predominance, but backed by Tamas first and then sattva, such a person has got a pravritti towards what is called as kshatriya karma. And a shudra is the one who has tamas predominance, then rajas, and ultimately the sattva comes. So when we have sattva, rajas, tamas, predominantly only in these four combinations. These are the four permutation combinations which are possible. And depending on these things, they are called as Guna Brahmana, Guna Kshatriya, Guna Vaishya, and Guna Shudra. And depending upon this Guna Brahmana, Guna Kshatriya, Guna Vaishya, and Guna Shudra, the karmas done by these people are also called as Brahmana karma, Kshatriya karma, Vaishya karma, and also Shudra karma. So, what are these four karmas which are done by these four varnas? Here, there is nothing which is superior or inferior. We have to understand it very well. The division is based only on the predominance of the gunas. How the particular four gunas are arranged, three gunas, sorry, how the three gunas are arranged in four distinct combinations. These four distinct combinations are given a particular name. That one particular name is Brahmana, Sattva, followed by Rajas and Tamas, Kshatriya, Rajas followed by Sattva and Tamas, then then Vaishya, where it is, it is Rajas followed by Tamas and Sattva, and last one Shudra, where there is Tamas followed by Rajas, lastly Sattva. So these are the four combinations. The four combinations are giving rise to four different types of mental pravritti, mental kind of a setup, that mindset of a person. This is called as the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. And the karmas done by these people who are predominantly of these gunas are called as Brahmana karma, Kshatriya karma, Vaishya karma, and Shudra karma. So in the 41st verse, Bhagwan introduces them and he says, Brahmana Kshatriya Vimsham Shudranam cha parantapa कर्माणि प्रविभक्तानि स्वभाव प्रभवै गुणैः. See, very clearly, Bhagwan says there's nothing superior, nothing inferior here at all. Nobody is talking about the caste system here. It is purely based on the guna of a person. He says, Swabhavaha. The type, the combination of gunas gives rise to that particular swabhava of an individual. And therefore, depending on the swabhava, prabhavaihi gunaihi, that swabhava of the individual, which is caused by the combination of the three gunas in these four different types of combinations: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vimsham. Vimsham means Vaishya, Shudranam cha karmani pravibhaktani. The four types of karmas, depending upon the four types of pravrittis, four types of the mental makeup, the emotional makeup, the makeup of the mind, depending upon that, these four groups of people perform four kinds of karmas, and they are called as the Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vimsha, and Shudrana. Cha Parantapa. Hey Parantapa, hey Arjuna, the karmas can be divided also into four types of karmas. Already I have talked about Satvika karma, Rajasa karma, Tamasa karma. But here another way of dividing the karmas is Brahmana karma, Kshatriya karma, Vaishya karma, Shudra karma, depending upon whatever is the mind, however, whatever is the swabhava of that particular mind, different karmas are being talked about. And may I tell you again that there is no question of any kind of a superiority or inferiority here. All the four kinds of pravrittis are necessary for the functioning of this entire universe. As much important as the Brahmana karma, equally important is the Shudra karma, because all the four karmas are interdependent on each other and they support each other in the running of this entire cycle of the universe. And in this way, Bhagwan says they are divided in this way. And in the next session, we'll see the details of how Bhagwan Krishna divides these karmas according to the Swabhava gunas based on the combination of these three gunas. Om Nandantu Sadhaka Sarve Vinashyantu Vidushakaha अवस्था शाम्भवी मेस्तु प्रसन्नोऽस्तु गुरुः सदा। सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखमाप्नुयात्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।